We have constantly heard about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, but today we will do the opposite by depicting what Sodom and Gomorrah were like before their destruction and what led to their downfall. Without further ado, let's get started. What was the world like before Sodom and Gomorrah? Have you ever wondered what the world was like before the fall of Sodom and Gomorrah? What was really happening in these cities that led to their destruction? What were the customs, beliefs, and daily life of their inhabitants at that time? Let's explore these questions and uncover fascinating details about a little-known era. But before that, like and subscribe to the channel to receive notifications for more videos, helping the channel to grow. Understanding the historical and cultural context before the destruction of these cities is crucial to grasping the profound lessons offered by the biblical story. Before their destruction, Sodom and Gomorrah were vibrant cities, full of life and activity. But what exactly was going on there? What was their relationship with the rest of the ancient world? As we delve into this investigation, we will discover how these societies were organized, what their main practices were, and how they influenced the surrounding region. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel, now is the time to do so. Here, we explore biblical themes with depth and clarity, bringing new perspectives on ancient stories. Hit the notification bell to stay updated and always be in the loop with our new content. Prepare for an enlightening journey as we unravel the world before Sodom and Gomorrah. To understand what really happened in Sodom and Gomorrah, we first need to situate ourselves geographically. These biblical cities were located in the southern region of the Jordan Valley, near the Dead Sea. This area, known for its low altitude, is one of the lowest points on Earth. The Dead Sea, famous for its extremely salty waters, served as a kind of natural barrier and was a prominent geographical feature of the region. Before the destruction, the Jordan Valley was a fertile and prosperous region, described in the Bible as well-watered, like the garden of the Lord. This area was ideal for agriculture and pastoralism. The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, along with other cities such as Admah, Zeboim, and Zoar, formed a kind of pentapolis, benefiting from the fertile land and the trade routes that passed through. Sodom and Gomorrah, in particular, were significant urban centers. They were not only economically prominent, but also known for their cultural diversity. Merchants and travelers from different regions passed through these cities, bringing with them a mix of customs and practices. This constant flow of people and goods made these cities melting pots of various cultures and traditions. The historical context of the region before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is equally fascinating. At that time, the area was under the influence of several ancient civilizations, such as the Amorites and the Canaanites. These peoples had their own religions and cultural practices, which often conflicted with the values upheld by biblical patriarchs like Abraham. It is important to note that the morality and customs of these civilizations were quite different from those described in the biblical texts, often leading to tension and conflict. The strategic location of the cities also meant they were frequent targets of invasions and conflicts. The Jordan Valley was a vital trade route connecting different parts of the ancient Near East, and controlling this region meant access to valuable resources and economic power. Therefore, Sodom and Gomorrah were at the center of territorial and political disputes that shaped the history of the region. Neighboring cities like Admah and Zeboim shared many geographical and cultural characteristics. All these cities benefited from their proximity to the Jordan River, which provided essential water for agriculture and daily life. Additionally, the proximity to the Dead Sea offered access to unique natural resources, such as bitumen, used in construction and other aspects of daily life. Mapping. This region helps us better understand how Sodom and Gomorrah fit into the broader picture of the ancient Near East. The geography directly influenced the economy, culture, and political relations of these cities. The Jordan Valley, with its fertile lands and strategic trade routes, was a microcosm of complex and varied human activities. Thus, by exploring the historical and geographical setting before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, we can see that these cities were at a crossroads of cultural and political influences. They were prosperous and well located, making them centers of life and activity. However, this prosperity and cultural diversity also brought challenges, especially in terms of moral and ethical conflicts. These elements created a tense and complex environment that culminated in the dramatic story we know today. Understanding this context allows us to better appreciate the lessons and warnings contained in the biblical narrative. By situating Sodom and Gomorrah within their historical and geographical setting, we can see that the story of these cities is part of a larger panorama of human development, conflict, and the search for spiritual meaning. Now that we have a clear view of the setting before the destruction, we can move on to understanding the events that led to their end and the impact this had on future generations. To better understand the context of Sodom and Gomorrah, we need to examine the cultures and civilizations that inhabited the region at that time. The area of the Jordan Valley, where these cities were located, was a melting pot of cultural, economic, and political influences. Let's explore the civilizations that coexisted and interacted in that region. At that time, the region was dominated by several ancient civilizations, including the Canaanites, Amorites, and Jebusites. The Canaanites were a group of Semitic peoples living in the land of Canaan, which extended from the eastern shore of the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordan Valley. They were known for their advanced agricultural practices and for building fortified city-states. Their cities were centers of trade and culture, where urban life flourished. The Amorites, on the other hand, were a nomadic people who gradually settled in the region. They were known for their military skills and for building their own city-states. The relationship between the Amorites and the Canaanites was often marked by conflicts, but also by cultural and commercial exchanges. The Jebusites, who primarily inhabited Jerusalem, were also part of this cultural mosaic, contributing their own practices and traditions. These civilizations interacted in various ways with the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah. Trade was one of the main forms of interaction. Trade caravans passed through the Jordan Valley, connecting Sodom and Gomorrah with other city-states in the region. These commercial exchanges brought not only goods, but also ideas and cultural practices. Trade routes were vital to the city's economies, allowing a constant flow of goods and wealth. Cultural influence was mutual. The religious practices of the Canaanites, for example, had a significant impact on the beliefs and rituals of the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah. The Canaanites worshipped a variety of gods and goddesses, and their temples and rituals played a central role in community life. This religious influence was reflected in the spiritual practices of Sodom and Gomorrah, creating a complex blend of beliefs that often conflicted with the values upheld by biblical patriarchs. Economically, the cities of the Jordan Valley were prosperous. Agriculture was the main source of wealth, thanks to the fertile soil and the availability of water from the Jordan River. Abundant harvests sustained the urban populations and allowed for the trade of surpluses. Additionally, the proximity to the Dead Sea provided valuable natural resources, such as bitumen, used in various applications from construction to medicine. Politically, the region was a mosaic of alliances and rivalries. City-states often formed coalitions to protect themselves from external invasions. These alliances, however, were fragile and frequently broken by disputes over power and resources. The relationships between Sodom, Gomorrah, and their neighboring cities were complex, marked by cooperation and conflict in equal measure. The relationship between these civilizations and the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah was not only economic and political, but also cultural. Cultural influences were evident in the arts, architecture, and social customs. The cities of the Jordan Valley were known for their wealth and sophistication, reflected in their buildings and artworks. This cultural wealth contributed to the reputation of the cities as centers of urban life and diversity. Understanding these cultural and civil interactions helps us better grasp the context in which Sodom and Gomorrah existed. The cultural and economic richness of these cities was deeply intertwined with the civilizations around them. These interactions shaped daily life, values, and practices, creating a complex tapestry of influences that defined the region. By exploring the cultures and civilizations of the time, we can see that Sodom and Gomorrah did not exist in isolation, but were part of a larger panorama of human development. Their stories are reflections of a constantly changing world, where external and internal influences shaped people's lives in profound ways. Understanding these interactions is crucial for appreciating the complexity of the biblical narrative and the events that led to the destruction of these cities. By exploring the cultural and civilizational setting, we can gain a richer and more complete view of the history that shaped the region and the stories that accompanied it. Let's now explore what really happened in Sodom and Gomorrah and how these events impacted the people of the time, what led to the destruction of these cities, and what was the significance of these events for future generations. To understand what really happened, it is essential to examine the biblical narrative and the historical accounts associated with these events. According to the biblical account, Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed by God due to their extreme wickedness and immorality. The book of Genesis describes the cities as places of great depravity, where the inhabitants practiced behaviors that, according to the biblical narrative, were unacceptable to God. The story is famous for its dramatic narrative, in which God decides to destroy the cities, but spares Lot, Abraham's nephew, and his family. According to Genesis 18 and 19, God revealed to Abraham that he planned to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah because of the outcry over their iniquities. Abraham, concerned about divine justice, intercedes on behalf of the cities, asking God to spare the cities if 10 righteous people could be found within them. God agrees, but ultimately the cities are found to be completely corrupt, and their destruction is carried out. Lot, who had settled in Sodom, is warned by angels to flee the city with his family. They escape just before the destruction, but Lot's wife turns back to look at the burning cities and is turned into a pillar of salt. The cities are consumed by fire and brimstone, and their destruction is described as a divine judgment. The significance of these events goes beyond the immediate destruction of the cities. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah serves as a powerful symbol of divine judgment and the consequences of moral corruption. It is often interpreted as a warning against sin and immorality, illustrating the idea that there are severe consequences for a society that abandons righteous living.